Okay, we're going live. Welcome to the Napa Jordan Peterson podcast. I'm Ryan. I'm here with Dallas, Darlene, and Arthur. We got a full house tonight.
Hey.
Tonight we're talking about the Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry versus.
Okay, we're going live.
Whoa, that's loud.
The Jordan Peterson podcast. I'm Ryan.
guess
We
it's
must
working.
still have
Dallas?
the volume up there from
Yep.
watching the video.
Yep, watching the video earlier this week. So, Jordan Peterson, Stephen Fry versus Michael Dyson.
I think so, yeah.
I forget if he has a middle initial or not. And Michelle Goldberg from the New York Times on the topic of political correctness. How's everyone tonight?
Doing good?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Thank you for doing this.
Oh yeah, well, it's not me. It's all of us. We get together to
Past
do
my
this.
bedtime, that's okay.
Yeah. Still, you're making it happen. This is pretty impressive.
All right. So the debate is a Munk debate. I guess they have me every year up in Canada. And they poll the audience in the beginning and see who's open to change their mind on the topic. And this year the topic was political correctness. Is it progress? Something along those lines?
Or is it a force for good? Or
What I call political, what you call political correctness, I call progress, I think.
Okay.
Was what they were pro and conning about.
So we started by watching the first two introductions. Michelle Goldberg from the New York Times talked about her position in the introduction, and then Jordan Peterson. I guess we can start by talking about Michelle's intro. I think that she did a very good job of talking about what she liked and what she didn't like from social justice, or for political correctness, I should say. She was definitely more moderate on the issue. She doesn't like no platforming. She said some of the aspects of social justice she didn't like. She didn't like Twitter mobs or call-out culture. And, healthy debate is good. So she doesn't want to stop people debate. But she did feel that that political correctness, if you got rid of it, you might be demonizing minorities. Like it's a powerful tool that can help the dispossessed. At least that was how I interpreted it.
I didn't hear her say that. I heard her say that the way the people like Peterson are using it is to either question the reality of the dispossession or to make it more difficult to do something about it. So it's like I didn't hear her saying that political correctness as such is a useful tool. I just heard her saying that the way Peterson's using it.
I didn't hear her say that, though. This is what we just heard right now?
Mm-hmm.
What I heard her saying was that... Fascinating, no, because I heard her saying that there are some ways that we're talking about things that are politically correct, means of speech. I think that's what I was hearing her say. So like Ms. stuck, but women with a Y didn't stick. And so I wasn't quite sure what her point was. I bet she was talking about in the 80s we had to think about this because we had to change the way and had a hyphenated way we talked about like the African Americans and how we used retard. I guess I wasn't really understanding. I was hearing her. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I was really understanding what she was saying. And then she did something about the gender neutral pronouns, which I had to like stop and even ask. I don't even know what gender neutral pronouns are. So she was saying that like in the 80s, I guess you couldn't. Do they call people Indians still?
Still do.
They do? Usually it means from the country of India.
India.
Though, where Native
so
Americans
Native Americans is what we're doing now. So that's the hyphenated thing that she's talking about.
It's like fixing the precision in the language too, so we know exactly what you're talking about, so we don't have overlapping terms, which English is just full of synonyms or not like such. Yeah.
So she seemed to be talking about political correctness, from I heard her, in terms of how we are using our speech and how we're changing our speech. That's what I was hearing. I didn't hear her really attack Peterson, or maybe I wasn't.
It was pretty strong, pretty direct attack.
Yeah, she did say something about Peterson, that he was making a blacklist or ways to avoid certain postmodern classes. She did not think that was the way forward. And
she quoted from a New York Times article by him, and I think it's important to recognize that she did sort of go directly attack him, and that unfortunately I think set the tone for part of the
Oh.
rest of it too.
So did
'cause
she
he-
do that in the very beginning? Like,
a couple
like,
times?
was I
It was like,
falling
it was like
asleep or,
throughout,
like, you know what I mean?
throughout the whole thing.
oh, okay.
I think. I mean, I heard her. And I've listened to her about 3 times now. Just,
Okay, it's good.
But Peterson started out by saying, you know, it's contrary to what you just heard. It's not about me. It's not about my views.
Uh-huh.
So it's unfortunate, I think.
Yeah, she's kind of saying that we shouldn't throw away political correctness because we'll throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some reason it's there,
Mm-hmm.
but she was putting like limits on it. I think that was kind of the
Yeah.
essence of what she was saying. And then she was trying to give some examples of progress it had introduced.
And she missed a really important opportunity to steel man Jordan. Instead of using the enforced monogamy thing, she really kind of just what's the word?
Smeared him.
Smeared him with that, with a kind of a mischaracterization of that. Instead of saying that he does say there's a value on the left and there's a reason for the left and there is dispossession and we have to do something about hierarchies and tyrannies, and that would have been a way to kind of open up the conversation, but she kind of just chose to go that direction. It was too bad.
Did you have any thoughts on what she said, or what did you understand she said?
I kind of understood. I guess I felt she was attacking Peterson, but more the attacking the traditional. What would you say? Like, I guess it would be conservative rhetoric, right? Or that's the way that I guess the lens that we look at it through this debate. But I think she was definitely kind of like making the argument. Especially I felt, and she did a good job of saying. What did she say? I didn't just watch it, but she said something like, "I understand that these words come about, and it's like people are going to use what they're going to use." She said, "I understand that argument, but on the other hand, and then the reality of the dispossessed, or what was the second one you said earlier when you first started talking about the thing she tried to do was."
I think that was right.
Peterson. No. You said that Peterson. You were talking about Peterson said that Peterson's making the claim of whether or not they are dispossessed or something like that.
I remember her saying that that the usage of the way Peterson is using political correctness, it can seem to call into question even the reality of dispossession and oppression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah, 'cause
that's
it's
the
like-
main one.
Yeah, she was saying that any kind of critique of the present hierarchies is kind of called political correctness, and by people like Peterson. That's what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like very reductive simplification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of sort of it would be reactionary. Maybe she's saying that he's being reactionary in that sense, defending the status quo, defending privilege is kind of reactionary.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder what is it about that? Is it something like, because when you throw that label out, like you say, oh, you're forcing me to be politically correct. What you're basically saying, like, you're a wuss. You can't handle it. Kind of. Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood that.
The term political correctness is used by, I think what they're saying is it's predominantly used by conservatives, and they think, oh, we should be able to say what we want. Like, the words just kind of come about in the language. So then people will say, like, you can't use this word. You can't use the word Indian, right, in this context. And then they'll be like, oh, you're just making me be politically correct. Like, so they throw it at you, and they say, like, oh, you can't handle the word. You can't handle, the connotation or whatever. And that's the dispossessed portion, right? Because then they're like, well, hey, there's actually injustices that are attached to this word. And so you can't just claim political correctness. Like, let's actually look at what's going on with this word. Right. And then the conservatives will be like, well, it's just, it's my First Amendment right. Don't force your political correctness on me. Yeah. I'll talk how I want to talk.
Yeah, it's like, so when you accuse someone of being politically correct, it's like you're being too sensitive, or and it's like this battle between sensitivity and tolerance. Like, how tolerant of you putting up with things before you speak out and you cross the line and communicate, hey, look, this word is hurting me. And on the other hand, sensitivity, it's like, well, you guys still have that line to define too. I'm afraid of saying that it's going to hurt me because this guy's going to say I'm being a baby. It's a very tough line that society's got to negotiate and balance.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is probably the important part of the matter, is because people who are willing to stand up, for the dispossessed, and the people who are, going to say, use the political correctness angle, they don't really matter, because it's the person that's in the middle who is like on the cusp of having the courage to speak up for themselves but not having it, or vice versa, the people who just want to go about their lives without being affected.
Yeah, and I think most honest people, when you're talking to someone says, "Hey, man, that offended me," it's all about how you say it. If you say, "Man, hey, man, that's politically correct," it's almost like a political will enforcing on them, like you can't go there because I'm forcing you not to. But if you're like, "Hey, man, that's a hurtful term,"
Right.
so it's used in various ways, even though we're saying the same thing. The tone
really
and attitude is everything, I think, and I think a lot of the reactions on the right is because they feel like their speech is being stifled by these people that are trying to enforce political will, even though some of them, not all of them, are trying to enforce political will. It's just maybe an inability to communicate that clearly without, with attitude. And just, it takes time. I know there's plenty of teenagers and college kids that are still figuring out how to, interact socially with the world, and it takes some time to figure out people and how to express yourself and communicate what you want. You barely know what you want yourself. That's one of Peterson's points.
What does dispossessed mean? I'm starting to wonder.
I think kind of like a minority doesn't have a lot of representation, so they don't have a lot of power
or ownership, or
Yeah, so it's kind of like.
But see,
minority.
don't they have to? Maybe I'm wrong, but like, don't you have to claim it as an individual? Don't the individuals have to claim it?
Well, that would be what the left does.
What?
Like-
Claim power, and try to step into power and.
But do you do it as a tribe, or do you really
Both.
do it as an
You
individual?
have to do it as both. It wouldn't be even possible to do it either way, because obviously you wouldn't. Obviously you can't have a group without individuals, right? Because there wouldn't be anything there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't also do it by yourself. Like Dallas has recently been protesting the 5G, and it's like, unless you have a group of people on the street protesting, you won't make an impact. Or
You look like a lone ranger.
yeah, or like.
Well, you still could make an impact.
Well,
I
you-
don't agree
yeah,
with that. You can't.
You're a
but
make
super
an
it's
majority then
degrees,
if you're a
but-
single person.
impact.
Super minority.
Yeah, you may or may not make an impact if you're an individual. You will make an impact if you're a big group, or a worker. The example of strikes too is the classic. That's the most powerful tool of the left to advance the working class rights is, and you obviously can't strike alone. The only way you can actually stop the business is if everyone agrees to say we're not going to work today. That's a strike. And
Yeah, but
that
didn't that
has
like
power.
cause and maybe I'm totally wrong, I don't know, but didn't that cause a lot of places to no longer allow for unionization and for unions to actually
Of course, unions are a
lose.
huge problem for
and
corporations.
so like
Well,
it's a big
unions
thing
were-
here because it used to be that there were unions in the wine industry, and now I believe they're not. I mean, I may be wrong here, but I believe they're not
It's-
really
it's-
allowed anymore. They
it's a
if
negotiation.
you wanted to unionize, then they don't. Then now they're not going to let you.
Well, of course, it gives the corporation more power and control if they don't have to deal with the union. But there are times where, it's fine. You don't need a union. The corporation's not corrupt. But there are times when they're abusing the workers, or it is corrupt or tyrannical, and the workers are going to organize. And even though corporations would like to stop it, we have the freedom and power in this country to organize as a union and to take to that power and challenge it, which is, I think, a good thing. I'll keep my comments about big unions and small unions to myself. Though, at the moment.
Yeah, there's big everything. There's big government, big unions, big business,
corporation, yeah.
Like aren't corporations individuals now too? I mean, isn't that like one of
Legally.
the big things that they're legally individuals?
Mm-hmm.
So
They have speech apparently.
Well, and they have property rights too. So, and that was the other interesting thing I thought about the group and the individual dynamic is that groups don't make decisions, right? It's just an individuals that make up the group make the decision. And I think
yeah, that was a fascinating little thing that we got into
yeah.
in our talk.
And I think if Peterson is trying to make the individuals more ethical, so to speak, or at least try to do the right thing, seek truth, that makes even the groups more ethical and stronger themselves.
Yeah, that's a tricky one to know.
Know what he's thinking, or
To know if it does do that.
oh,
Ethical. What improves the group or the individual ethically?
Because groups have characteristics that cannot be reduced to individuals either. I mean, there are group dynamics. So things happen that are a group that really do not happen at an individual level. So what I'm saying is that groups actually exist. I mean, they have an existence. They're to the degree that group dynamics exist.
well, definitely know there's things like what they call like multipliers, right? Where the sum of the it's not either if it's the group value or the group output is not necessarily all the pieces added up. It's they multiply each other even by a little bit.
Yeah, things change at a certain.
Yeah, the sum of the
Mhm.
parts is less than the whole,
Mhm.
right? Because the whole
Mhm.
is going to be greater than the sum of each of the individual parts, kind of thing.
And there's resonances, and then you build on
Mhm.
resonances, and it's not just the sum of the.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the important thing is to avoid falling into the trap of it being one or the other. I mean, it's not even remotely possible to separate individuals from community, because individuals would literally not exist without communities. They would not have been born if there were no parents and family. They would not have survived childhood if there weren't family. I mean, and they wouldn't have language, because languages they wouldn't there wouldn't be such a thing as an individual
Mm-hmm.
without the community, and obviously there wouldn't be any community without individuals. So this is not it's a mistake to kind of think of them fight over which is more important. It's like, what is the whole truth of this? What
Mhm.
I guess I don't understand the term political correctness. Does that ever get like actually?
Yesterday, well, we started.
No, but they don't hammer it out.
But the Wikipedia article that we read, you were there? No, you weren't there
I
yet.
think I wasn't there yet.
Yeah, but we read that. I think that does a great job of defining political correctness in sort of the most neutral terms.
And the one thing you added was the history where it came from in the group.
That was in their Wikipedia article later on, I think, too.
Do you want to repeat that for?
Well, I mean, it has a really long history. It goes back to the 1600s, and has a couple different sources. But where it was used on the left was kind of in the precise opposite way that it's being used by the left's enemies today. So it was used by the left to criticize people who are being too fanatical and too dogmatic. So like if you were in the Communist Party and whatever the Communist Party said was right, and you follow the Communist Party line, you were being politically correct. You were just like following blindly the line. So that's what political correctness means on the left.
Originally meant.
And still does to some degree. It
Mhm.
means self-criticism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was fascinating.
To
Mhm.
follow blindly.
Yeah, so it's a leftist. It's a way that the left critiques itself when it becomes too dogmatic.
It's like you're being an ideologue. You're being
Yeah, yeah.
politically correct.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Following the Kremlins.
So what would be the right's version of that?
It's kind
The
of
right used it against the left.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm saying that it sounds like they were using it as a tool to
fine.
help themselves to be better. The left was using it as a tool to help themselves be better by
Right.
self-correcting and the self-criticism,
Yeah.
critiquing themselves.
Mhm.
So I was wondering. I mean, I don't think anything exists in a vacuum. I guess I have
Right, you
more
always
of a
think it's gonna be on the
philosophical
other.
approach. So I don't know if this makes any sense. Just I'm coming from metaphysics, but I wonder what the right tool of that is.
How the right goes about being self-critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're less self-critical than the left in general.
Yeah.
Like you compare the Democratic parties and Republican parties. The Democratic parties is like that famous idea that the firing squad in a circle
Mm-hmm.
and eating their own, and that kind of, I think it's a distorted, pejorative view of things.
The right
But
eating one?
no, most people, there's a kind of common idea that the left tends to break up into groups often just because they're criticizing each other.
Oh.
And that's not exactly being self-critical. That's criticizing other people on the left. Whereas the right, because they value order, tend to be more lockstep, and they tend to be more organized and
okay.
tend to be, I think, less self-critical
Mm.
in terms of what their platform is.
self-critical being the vehicle that improves the party, like it corrects the platform from going out of balance.
Or
Something-
just, to me, it always comes down to the truth. Is it helps you be more truthful.
be more.
But
So,
there's
how,
a-
so
but
what, how
there's
does the
advantages to it.
right be more truthful?
Well, I think they need to. I mean, their role is to defend
Yeah.
systems that work, the
Mhm.
order and the
Okay.
the structures that exist today. That's their job. So we can start with that.
Mm.
But how do they seek truth? Well, they also need to understand not only their role but the left's role too. The left's role is to defend the minorities and to
Mhm.
create progress. Like, is there some injustice that's happening on a society level that we need to examine
Right.
and rectify? And then there's all sorts of topics from abortion to immigration, and that
So what
It's
you're
hard
saying? You're
to
saying the right
find
is
the
the
middle
truth,
ground.
and the left is what
Mhm.
corrects them.
No, I think they both have a role in seeking truth, but to for both sides to seek truth, they have to understand each other.
Mhm.
You can't demonize the other
Mhm.
side, and I think that was what Peterson's talking about when he's talking about the tribalisms. Is as soon as you have your tribe go to war with the other tribes and start demonizing it, that's just going to end in
Us
either-
against them.
Yeah, it's either totalitarianism or Nazis or what is
But he
Where
was
you
saying,
have
right, that
supremacy, I guess.
all, what did he say, something like all hierarchies are going to have,
Mhm. Tyranny.
yeah,
They're gonna
there's
lean
no
towards the
hierarchy
tyranny.
without tyranny, yeah. That it's a fundamental situation, so it's good
Mhm.
to be aware of that.
Mhm.
So in that case, the left is going to be the defender and the champion
Mhm.
for the dispossessed or those
Yeah,
people that find themselves at the lower
At the bottom,
end.
and the right's supposed to defend all
Right.
the structure in the middle
Mhm.
and above, kind of.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That you have to have a view of the world that it's going to be a battleground,
Well, yeah, and I
kind of
think,
no matter what.
yeah.
Wait, what?
It's going to be a battleground, no matter what.
Well, that's what Peterson is. That's what he's saying. The left is saying, and he's saying that's wrong.
Oh, okay.
I think there's room for conversation on the way, like the discussion
Okay.
where we're going to have
Gotcha.
differences that we work to resolve. But if I say, well, Darlene's a horrible person because she believes this thing, I
Mhm.
can't believe that.
Mhm.
We just need to kick her out right now and
Mhm.
never talk to her again. That doesn't progress anything at all. That's very divisive and very very political,
Well,
right?
It would not. I guess it might serve to unify the people that are in your group, and it would serve for those people to not maybe be challenged or diluted. So the thinking's not going to be diluted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's kind of.
It's like a purity thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
we're gonna be more right wing than you type of.
Yeah.
or we're gonna believe these certain values stronger. Yeah, I
Right.
think there's a little bit of that. I think it's like leadership, right? You're leading. You're like, we're gonna make this even more right than before, and people respect that. I think when you take a position, you hold it well and defend it well. I think people respect that, and that's what you see extremes developing. And of course, one extreme's just going to grow the other extreme on the other side. I think,
Yeah.
which is a lot of what we're seeing.
And then you go to war.
Well, and then you introduce something like the internet where everyone gets their comment on it, and the only thing that gets clicks on the internet is talking about the extremists, and it's very easy to pave over the moderates because who wants to talk about these people agree over here?
Right.
That doesn't get any
If it
clicks.
bleeds,
Well,
it leads.
I don't
right?
think it's a question of agreement or disagreement. There's nothing like fanatical about disagreements, and there's nothing particularly truthful about moderates either. It's just being truthful is the key, and listening and having dialogue is the key.
I didn't hear anybody saying that they were going after truth. I mean,
Yes,
did we bring that in?
What are you saying?
I think Peterson preaches it in like 12 Rules, but this is a good example where she goes at him very clearly. She talks about the Frozen, she talks about his blacklist, she talks about forced monogamy, and then Peterson goes after the left. He tries to set up this framework where the left is this, and they're doing these things, whether they're doing that or not.
Yeah,
and-
he demonizes the left.
The extreme left, yeah.
So, I mean, I think
In response to that she was demonizing him.
no, he's been doing that for 20 years now. But
what
I
is-
mean, I think she's actually responding ultimately to his demonization. But in terms of the debate, she could have veered. She could have
It
taken
changed
the
it.
higher road and sort of helped the conversation not go that way.
And
Unfortunately.
there's something weird about the structure too. You have different people doing intros, and they all kind of like bring up their own arguments. And
Yeah.
it wasn't coordinated with their own teams, and it wasn't coordinated across. It definitely seems like there could have been some way to make that a little more cohesive, so they were at least talking the same language to kick it off instead of having 4 different distinct arguments being bounced around that night.
Yeah.
That made it very hard to follow and get any resolution.
And real lack of definition
Mhm.
of like, what are we really talking about? I
Yeah.
feel like they're saying their own stuff, but it's kind of like, it's not. It doesn't seem like they're on the same page at all.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. Even though Peterson's got his own language, it feels like there's more discussion in our group about language and getting things back and forth. And I think that's one of the things I admire about the Peterson is really being able to enable discussion, because I think that's definitely the way forward. I don't want to have to go to.
So he talks about being precise in your language, but he doesn't take the time to
Yeah,
take us
he doesn't,
into the
he doesn't
precision.
practice what he preaches, but still, it's
Yeah.
worthwhile to preach it.
Yes.
It's still a good
Yeah.
thing to
So-
preach.
Everyone falls short of their faith,
Yeah.
so to
Right.
speak. And he says he writes the rules for himself too. He's
Right.
not saying he's mastered all these things.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm any closer to understanding what political correctness really is.
Well, I'm trying to remember what the Wikipedia article said. I think it did a good job of that. Was the idea
But you guys had to bring in an
the way-
outside
the way it's being-
source. I mean, like, because you would think if you're watching this, you would find out what they're saying about it.
yeah, that
you
would
know
have been
what
nice
I mean?
to
Yeah.
have started out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's what the point of the show is. If if they don't declare their intent, and you only can deduce it psychologically, you have to see what the outcome was, and the outcome was we got to see these 4 people's interpretation of political correctness and why it was important to them, which was still interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
But
It's just gotcha journalism. We're watching because we want to see somebody get somebody.
yeah,
Right.
well, there's a little bit of that.
I'm saying that's all it is. I mean, what else is it?
Yeah, there's a little bit of battle there, right? Some type of gladiatorism.
Yeah.
But
Well, maybe that's why you guys are picking up on all these themes too of like sensationalism and provocateurism, because that's the purpose. That's the
But in order to avoid it, I mean, that's why I pointed out. It's like to
oh, you're saying you watched the debate to figure out what to avoid.
partly,
Yeah. Okay.
and also just to. I mean, I think they do express their ideas pretty well, and they do. I mean, there is a clash of ideas here.
Mhm.
And
is
and
there?
and it does help clarify what that clash is all about, I think.
But is there though, in the sense of to the truth, finding the truth, like
Yeah.
you talk about?
and there's something about there's people on the left
So,
and the
let's
right
talk
both
about that.
paying attention to it. So
Yeah,
it did
that-
get
that's
everyone
the
to
more
listen
sort
to
of
each
truth.
other's side.
Well, maybe. I mean, there's being in the presence of the sounds coming in your direction, and then there's actually listening with the intent to understand, which is rarely happens.
So what truth did they uncover, if any?
No, I'm just saying that it's on the way to uncovering truth,
Mm.
and it takes a while to to tease these things apart, and.
Truth is elusive.
Mm.
I'm sorry. I keep
Have
cutting
you
my
guys watched the whole thing?
No,
I've seen the whole thing a couple
I've
Okay.
seen it a year ago or so. Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before. So my question was, do we do a disservice
By stopping it and trying to talk about it without seeing it more in the whole.
Well, we tried to
It's a
keep the
philosophical
discussion limited
question.
to what we just watched.
Right.
So we don't really try to pull from ahead, but anyone that does extra homework, I don't think there's any penalization for that.
So
or
why
should
do you
be.
do that? I mean,
What?
yeah. So since it is a philosophical question, why is that your strategy?
Yeah, because
To
it
watch
would
it
seem
together?
to me, well,
no,
it
the
would
way
seem
you,
to
the
me
way
that
you like
you'd
to watch it.
see, to me, it would seem like you need to watch the whole thing first to get an idea of the whole thing, and then. Have you ever read
Why do you think that?
Kant's-
That's your philosophical.
Yeah, because when you read Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, he takes you on this fun little journey where he actually argues the opposite first. And he goes through all of this stuff to then switch it on you so you'll be able to see the right way. So I have a habit of always wanting to read the thing in its entirety first, and then I'm much more comfortable because I always figure, like, I don't even know if this little section is real or not.
Yeah,
I never tried to
where
trick.
it is. So like a great books is a great books thing for me because that's my major.
It sounds like me in fiction. Like, I won't stop reading a book or stop watching a movie because I believe it deserves its full thread. You don't know how it's going to turn out. Even
And you
though the
can't
first part's bad.
decide from little pieces of it because it's not like the whole pie is being sliced and you're getting that. You actually have to have the whole thing in its
The whole
Well,
experience.
it's probably both.
right.
The little pieces and the whole.
Well, it's. I think the answer is it's tough to give everyone homework to go say watch this before we can discuss it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
I think that's the ultimate
And
answer.
it's
to
like
That's
that.
2
it.
hours long, right? So
Yeah, it's a commitment.
Yeah.
So that's why we try to do it in the group too. So even I miss, we do those rules every week, every month now.
Yeah.
I don't always have a chance to catch up
Yeah.
on those. So
It's also it's something different, right? It's not the thing itself.
Mhm.
It's something different. So when we so
Oh yeah,
we're-
we are
we're-
definitely something different.
but we're creating a new thing by watching it together and talking about it together. It's a new
Yeah.
thing.
and where the conversation goes different. Like every time we do a rule, conversation is
Right.
completely different.
Well, even when we do this thing, when we're trying to recap what we talked about, oftentimes we
Right.
veer off and then it becomes
Mhm.
a totally different
Mm-hmm.
something or
Yeah,
other.
because we're developing
Because-
ideas and taking what we learned from it.
Because no man ever steps into the same river twice. Because he is not the same
Right.
man and it is not
Yes.
the same river.
That's right. I like that.
Is that? I think that's
Yes.
Horace or
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It's one of those.
Uh-huh.
Some of those Greeks.
Yeah,
Yes.
Horace.
Yes.
He was also the one that said, "Get money by any means." What did he say? Something like, "Take it, steal it, whatever, just get it."
Just get it.
Yeah, he said something like that.
Do
All
it.
those ancient philosophers.
Just do it, right? That's where Nike got it.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
do
just
it.
do
yeah,
it.
yeah. So then, what's the aim of all these conversations are different, and you have the small pieces, right? And but the aim still got to be the same in terms of uncovering the truth, right?
Well,
That's
what
the
is it
hope.
for you? I mean, what is it for you?
Well, I think I would be more along the lines of watching it all at once, and then talking about it, and so.
No,
Yeah,
you can do that.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I didn't even know you
No,
guys
yeah,
hadn't
but
seen it before.
I wouldn't force anybody to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
But again, there is no whole thing. I mean, because if the
Mhm.
audience, they're
Yeah.
listening to it step by step, so and they're thinking about it step by step. So we're doing the same things. We're just being the audience. We just have the advantage of being able to pause it.
Yeah, that's a good
But that's
existential
a
question.
change. But that
yeah.
changes
But
it
it-
entirely.
But
I
it always
think.
it's whatever you do, it's changed.
Yeah.
Once it's taped and it's changed, and if you're not there physically,
Gotta
it's
seek
changed.
that purity. How can we'll recreate it with this
Right,
exact
right.
same stage.
It's
We'll
all
get it.
different.
I do like the purity. You're
But we
right.
don't- but
I
we
want to
don't-
see. I want to find out
But
what
we'd still all be older by then. So
Oh, yeah,
it's
exactly.
different. It's always
And just the
different.
fact that it happened once before, it has these ripples across time and space.
Well, then if it's whatever we want, the
Well,
battlefield.
no one says whatever we want.
Well, but that's kind of what you're saying.
Not even remotely.
Well,
I mean, it
but-
wouldn't
but
occur
how's
to me
it-
to put that way.
How's it different?
It's whatever
It's
is
whatever it
be.
is.
Yeah.
Right,
Whatever
but, so,
becomes.
but I can influence it because
Oh, yeah.
because I'm not
Yeah.
held to any standard, so I can take it wherever I want it.
Oh yeah, you can
Right.
add your
No,
own
you'll-
input
you'll
and
find-
creativity.
You won't be able to take it to it wherever you want it because you'll find that reality exists, and it will stop you, or it will change you, or it will influence you. And
Well-
we're, like we
well,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
you-
true.
You can't stop
do
feedback.
you can't do
yeah.
whatever you want with us.
Well, but I'm attached to it, so I can bend it, right?
You can try.
Just
Well,
all
yeah.
just all of us being in the same room, we're enforcing our wills on each other,
Mhm.
Right,
and we come out different people at the end, just
Mhm.
because we were around each other differently.
right. But so you're saying that is it the predestination argument where this conversation's already been.
Mm-mm.
No,
Well, I don't understand how I can't influence it.
no, I
No.
said you can,
You are.
Yeah.
but it's not. It doesn't
But you
come
don't
up
have
to
full-
whatever you however you want.
But you don't have full
Right.
control, and you're not immune from it not influencing you
Well,
back.
for example, like if our goal was to seek the truth, right?
Mhm.
Then I'm sort of held to the standard of we're constantly like, well, what's the truth in this? What's the truth in this?
Well,
yeah.
Right?
yeah.
But since we have no standard, right now I could just say like, what's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And regardless of what the truth is.
And I think we all have our own perspectives and we have our own blind spots. And I think by saying, this is what I saw, and you say, this is what I saw, and Darlene says, this is what I saw, all of a sudden we kind of see each other what we're missing. And because that missing also, our brain kind of fills those gaps in. And so it's slightly different each time.
Right.
And by sharing and all that.
That's what I'm
saw,
saying too. I'm saying that whatever I share, though, like, I'm not held to any standard with what I share.
No.
Right.
It's what you share. I mean, how could Dallas? You did not experience it that way.
Well, I could try to share the truth, or I could try to share Kant's anti-truth.
Right.
True. You could.
But if we didn't have a mechanism for me getting to the end. But anyways, the reason I mentioned it because that battle thing was interesting to me because we are talking about political correctness and the idea of the culture war, right? If there is a culture war, how could it be anything but a battle where we go?
Well, it's differing ideas, and it's about seeing if we can come to a resolution of how we want to run our culture
through battle.
But that's not how a war acts. That's not how a war is. A war is one side is victorious over another side.
Interesting.
So
That's
just
a good
to
point.
use the language to say that we're having a culture war indicates it's a fight.
So
and we want someone to be victorious.
It's a low resolution reduction of what the representations, right? It's a way to say
How do
that
you
we're
mean?
in conflict, right? The people that use that term.
Yeah, it can be
Right.
used to foment more of the same, but it can also be like it's just kind of a low resolution way of referring to something that's going on that we want to actually pacify, maybe do something about.
Yeah, and Peterson used low resolution.
Yeah, like
he said,
solve it like a peace treaty.
yeah. So he said peace and low
we
resolution.
need to find a peace treaty so that we stop. So
Falling into
culture,
the
but
culture
culture
war.
war is wrong.
if we
And
reduce it
need
down
to,
to
we
that,
need
yes.
we need to bring peace. Like we're in war.
So
And we need to bring peace back.
I would put it. I wouldn't say it's wrong. I would say it is. I think it's a reality. I think that there's an actual war of ideas going on, and there will be winners and losers in terms of the war. I call it meme warfare. And I think that's what I think is really going on, or spiritual warfare is one way to look
But
at it.
what I'm saying is that using warfare, it's a war of ideas, right? And so war is an idea, in essence, right?
Very good. I
So
see where you're going.
Yeah. So
Right.
so war is a bad idea.
could be.
I
would
don't
say
I don't
always.
see that.
Yes,
so-
it's
so-
a
but-
fundamental truth that war is a bad idea because war's never going to give you peace or you're going to have somebody who's going to be victorious over someone else.
Yeah.
I
But
think there
it's-
could be just wars, though.
Oh, I believe there can be just
Yeah.
wars, but I think what we're saying is something different. If I'm understanding what you're saying, because it's the idea of the use of the term war is what's the wrong
Yes, I think
way. It's a wrong means of expression because we can't get to whatever this. If we want this enlightenment, we're both going to rise up. We're not going to get that with the low resolution war ideology.
what is the culture war? It's just describing what the left's role is and the right role is, and saying only one can win. It's kind of stupid. It's like no, they both need to be there. They both need to function. One side's going to win over the other, and when the hierarchy seems to tip one or the other, we have bad results. So
It's telling us how to act.
So by framing it in the war, we've kind of lost.
Yes, that's what I think, and that's why you're saying we need some kind of peace treaty or some kumbaya moment so we can all rise up.
Realize
Or
we
it's
both have
a
a
better
role.
metaphor.
Right.
Yeah, we both have a role in this. Both sides have a role.
Yeah.
What I mean, this is a conversation I've had many times too, because I'm in the dialogue world a lot, and so a lot of people in that world don't want to use the word war, and I'm usually defending the term culture war because I don't want to underestimate what's at stake. Actual lives are at stake, and there will be winners and losers. You can't. There are irreconcilable ideas out there that cannot be that will not be able to live together in the same country. They won't. You know, like so, the Mormon idea of sexuality and gay marriage, these are irreconcilable ideas. For example.
Or why?
Huh?
I guess I don't understand why.
Why the Mormon idea of
That they have
Or-
multiple wives, right?
Or
No,
take
they don't
like
anymore.
Sharia law. How could we implement Sharia law here in the United States and still keep religious freedom? They're incompatible.
Okay.
So there just are many irreconcilable interests and even material economic interests. I mean, people will win and people will lose. I mean, so that's why I think I don't want to underestimate. But what I always aim for is an honest war, a truthful war, and a war about truth. Is the way I look at it.
War of ideas.
Well, truth.
See, because
Aiming
the
for the
ideas
truth.
could be like, just hollow.
Well, you can lie your way into winning. And so what I always try to do is try to do something about that. I want an honest fight. I want a truthful fight.
Yeah, this is a conversation I have never had, I don't think. So that's interesting. I mean, I think you're right. It's a question of, is war avoidable? War is sort of like a part of our species, right? We can never be without war. So we might as well look at it as a war and treat it as a war.
I think we can be without war. Soldiers and guns. I think we can be without that.
But
I'm a
we
philosopher, so that doesn't
But we can't
doesn't
be.
jive with me.
We can't all be the same person with the same values. We all have different values, different personalities,
Yeah.
and the conflict those causes is what we can't. That's an extractive.
Yeah, we can't be without conflict.
Right.
Oh, we'll
Right.
create it when there's not enough of it. I think that's pretty
conflict
obvious.
is different though in a marriage and in a war.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
So
Except the War of the Roses. Ever seen that movie?
I love that movie.
is that the one with
That's
Danny
one of my
DeVito
favorite.
or?
Yeah, I think so.
But they're not married.
Oh.
I mean, in
weren't.
reality, well, a real marriage would be that you're trying to be together. So the whole thing about that is that they decide they no longer want to be married, and so that's why they're all like going at each other so much. So,
So if it is a war though, that means we have to battle. There has to be battles. So and you're saying it's like a war for truth or a truth war.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the battles look like?
Well, you talked about casualties.
So like climate change, for example,
Yeah.
in science.
Right.
I mean, I happen to be a skeptic myself about that, just because I feel like I've looked into the the denial side enough for me to come away feeling slightly confused. So
Yeah, there's a reasonable doubt.
for me, there is.
Yeah, me too.
Because
reasonable
I-
doubt about. I'm sorry.
Well,
whether climate, what is actually going on in terms of the climate. I personally don't feel like I
And-
know.
Well, the way I frame it is whether man is causing the climate change. I think there's
Mhm.
plenty of evidence there is change in climate,
Uh-huh.
but what is causing it, I think, is a
and
more
we
wider
haven't
debate.
actually been documenting it or tracking it for long enough to be able to fully get enough empirical data to kind of make that leap of what is really going on.
But I was just using that as an example of what does the battle look like, and that's one.
So it's the issues.
The issues are the battles, and it's
Hmm.
and it's about. It involves what is truth? How do we know truth?
And the
So
stakes
then
are
there
high.
should be some,
And the
but there
stakes are
should be
high.
some way, like if you say, to do an experiment, because it's like, right, this is how we do things. We try it, we look at things, we try to get historical data, and then we have to know if we have enough empirical evidence or not. If we've watched it enough, or we have enough information. So it would seem to me that there would be some way to agree or disagree as to whether we have enough.
Well, there's
It's
a
for
limitation. How do you get
interpretation.
the entire planet to stop producing CO2 for the day? It's just there are limits that we can't perform tests with. We can only control so much, and we are a massive, complex, moving system with lots of different variables, and because of that, you just can't eliminate it down far enough. That's why a lot of this testing up in like the International Space Station is great, because then we can take it out and
Right.
kind of play it in a different environment.
It's been fascinating to watch how things flip over time. Like in the 50s and 60s and 70s, you might associate the word believe with the conservative side, right? Do you believe in America? Do you believe in this? And now it's like the sort of the progressive or liberal side is, do you believe in climate change? As if it's like a belief. It's an odd thing, and then there's climate skeptics in denial. So it's using the language of belief as opposed to.
Well, it's an unknown, and that's how you deal with the unknown. You have a belief in it or not. I think both sides use it all the time. I don't think it's one way or the other. It's just when you talk about specific values, that's when the groupings happen. But
So in the
I think
1950s, to say believe would have been what? I'm trying to understand what you're saying. In the 1950s?
it's like the way it's like shifting how the word belief
Mm-hmm.
today in the culture wars seems to be used more often by liberal progressive side around the climate change issue.
Mm-hmm. And then the 50s, what was it?
Well, I was just saying sometime in the past it seemed like I get the very vague impression that the word belief was sort of more like a conservative idea. And then the left was question authority, right? Question everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's flipped, and the authority is science. Science is the authority, and you have to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But since I've lived long enough, I've seen this flip back and forth a couple of times.
Gotcha.
And so it's odd.
Yeah, there's some sides that want pure belief in the experts, and there's sometimes the other side wants experts to be continually challenged.
Well, in terms of inherent characteristic of right and left, that's fairly stable. The right tends to be authoritarian or want authority and belief consistent, and then the left tends to be more doubting and skeptical. But I'm talking in terms of the culture war, something else is going on. The language is shifting, and the issues are shifting in a weird kind of way, like the Russia thing. So before Trump got into office, people on the left would tend to be saying, well, we got to talk to the Russians, we got to be friends.
Or my favorite times was the debate between Romney and Obama, when they asked Romney who's our biggest threat. He said Russia, and he was pretty much laughed by all the media.
Right. And
then,
now it's flipped.
Yep.
So that flipping is a phenomenon I think that's interesting, and I mean, spiritually I think it's the way Satan works. I think he flips.
Mm-hmm.
He's a shapeshifter, so he's always flipping.
Yeah, because language is evolving on both sides. No matter what your values or what side you're on, it's going to change on you. And I think that's what Orwell was kind of talking about, Orwellian language, that it kind of all of a sudden means the opposite what it means.
Right.
But I'm starting to feel like that's just the nature of language to a large extent. It's like it keeps evolving, and it has to evolve. We have to get rid of the stuff that doesn't make sense anymore.
I think these things are deliberate and planned. There are people sitting down and how do we shift the language?
Well, there's definitely political power exerting their will. There's definitely extremists and ideologues that are trying to tilt the tables and get their purity they're seeking.
My daughter was telling me some weird thing that this is, maybe I'm totally off topic, but this was a weird thing that Katie was telling me the other day. The greatest goat.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Greatest
of all time.
Greatest of all time. And it was really fascinating because we have studied a lot of scripture since they were young. They read the Bible and stuff. So when there's that verse that talks about Christ separating the sheep from the goats. Mm-hmm. And this is just narcissistic enough that it really was freaking her out. Like, people don't know what they're saying when they talk about, oh, you're a goat, and they're all excited about it. And she really felt like that was like Satan flipping language around and using different ways to express things.
And we talked about
it. Really was scary for her. It was, and I was like, well, don't be afraid. There's no reason to be afraid. That's another step. You know what I mean? Good to be aware, and good, and maybe to educate some people, to talk about it and bring it up. But I wouldn't be afraid of it.
Well, we also talked in the group about reappropriating language. Sometimes it has a bad meaning, and they want to change it to something more positive. There are people doing that. To very hurtful words. They want to take the power out of them.
Queer becomes queer power. Black power. These are terms.
Bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Quit slut shaming me.
Cock.
Weird, but do people actually say this to their go into the winery, and it's so weird, oh bitch, and they mean it as a really positive term to their friend. And I'm
bitchin' too.
Yeah, and I've never heard anybody say cock to the other guy, but I have heard people in a public place, bitch, and it's and I'm kind of what? Because that's so weird to me. I don't even get it. It's something I don't know about.
When I was growing up, we always just say wicked.
Yeah.
Good, right?
Yeah, that's wicked. I want one.
That's bad.
Yeah. They say sick now, right?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's a linguistic phenomenon, and I don't know how deep it goes. I don't know if it goes all the way to some metaphysical being called Satan, or is it just psychological, or what. But it's there. It's there.
Yeah. Why
I got
do you want
into
to take
a
the words?
huge argument with someone the other day because I was defending woke because I want to be woke.
Yeah, me too.
Right, but I guess woke has a negative connotation to
What
it,
does it
to
mean?
the
I've heard,
political
apparently.
correctness people,
Oh.
because I guess woke people are people who stay. I guess they'd be like woke to the culture war.
Or
And
they're
for the
declaring
negative
their
connotation, the people who use woke in a negative way are using it to refer to people who stay woke to the culture. They keep
Yes,
themselves
they-
woke to the culture war,
Mm-hmm.
and they argue, don't keep yourself woke to sensitizing these words because they're not. They're just words that are part of the culture, thus further disempowering the dispossessed. Which
What does
also
woke mean then? I'm so still
Well, it depends
confused.
who you-
that's
depends on what
that's
side
I'm
of the
saying.
thing.
Yeah,
It could be a
there's an
pejorative,
alternative,
or it could mean it's a virtual signal. I would say
Yeah.
you're saying you're declaring what side of the war you're on, how you use that word.
Virtual.
but I didn't even know that, and I thought it meant enlightenment, and I was like,
Yeah,
no,
it
you want to be
kinda
woke,
does.
and I got into a huge
But
argument.
It means, in today's context, it means you're enlightened in a specific direction,
Yeah.
and that's
And the pejorative would be to be enlightened in that.
in that
this-
direction,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In a
Instead
specific.
of enlightened to the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Which
think
is,
it
I
would
think,
be
at the
to-
essence of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying you're enlightened to the false.
Yeah, the first
Some
time I
people
heard
are
it,
like,
I
no,
thought
you're
they were
enlightened
saying
to the false.
that I was not enlightened. I'm like, oh wow, that's a real pejorative way of saying it. We're all not enlightened. You're the only one that's enlightened. You're woke.
Right.
I thought it was really
Yeah,
pejorative
yeah, yeah.
first time I heard it.
Yeah, that's just another way you can use it. Be like, you're not woke.
you know,
you could be like, oh, you don't believe in climate change? Oh, get woke.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Wow.
you're asleep.
Mhm.
You're dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is in essence what it.
What it means.
You call the arms, right?
Yeah. That's what it all means, actually. Like, even
Yeah.
political correctness, when you say, oh, you're being PC, you're saying you're dumb. You're too dumb
Right.
to know language.
You just study
That's
it.
essentially
Just
what it's
putting
saying. You're
effort
too
into
dumb to know
care.
language.
You don't care enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I care about the world more.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a way to put other people down.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking the words to put using words to put other people down.
Literally.
Is it human nature to admire the strong, or do you
Yeah,
think that's more of
Superman.
a result of the environment?
Wait, or
Did I jump too far?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
So I
connect a couple dots.
Is
over
that
there.
the same thing?
So I'm thinking. Before earlier, I talked about strong leaders taking strong positions, and we respect them, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe the edgy teenager is like, I'm bucking authority. I'm wicked. I'm going to be the bad boy, right? I'm going to do these sounding negative things, right? I'm going to push the limits. There's something respectful about these outliers, right? These opinion leaders. And I wonder if it's something innate in human nature that makes us respect it. So these people that are kind of extreme or take those extremes are more admirable to us, who are more maybe moderate or open-minded. It would be so much easier if I didn't have to consider all your decisions and just had my mind made up. If I knew the right way, how easy the world would be. I mean, that's a relief. Like, I don't have to think about anything anymore. So I guess there is some like, man, I want to be that guy. He,
That's why that in Conversation on the Way, Peterson is pretty strong about the importance of shifting our normal desire to have certainty. We have to embrace chaos. We have to let go of order and embrace chaos, because we're entering into the unknown. If you want the truth, you have to enter into the unknown, which is chaotic, and it's very scary. So I think that's one of the main reasons why people end up in these so-called tribes, right, left, right tribe, left tribe, whatever, is because of that uncertainty, the difficulty of living in uncertainty. And I think it was Keats called it negative capability, the ability to sort of remain woke and aware without seeking after certainty too quickly.
I'm thinking I got to go back because I'm missing this. So Conversation on the Way is you let go of order, you enter into the unknown in order to
Find the truth.
to
I mean,
find
yeah,
the
the
truth.
goal is you're aiming at the truth.
There is the truth.
Well,
exists.
there's truth.
Well, is it your truth or is
No,
it capital T truth?
There's-
Right? Because there's little
well, there's
T truth.
perspective, and then there's what really
Yeah,
happened.
to me, there's that it's like a pet peeve of mine is that there's a discussion about the meaning of that word. I don't think there should be a discussion about the meaning of the word truth. Truth is just the reality. Whatever happens to be the case, that's the truth.
Yeah, there's reality and there's
Yeah,
perception.
it
of
doesn't
the
matter
reality.
whether it's small t, little t, the, or not. It's just truth. It's just whatever happens to be the case. Very difficult to discover, which is a whole nother question. But
Whatever happens to be the case.
is the truth.
What do you, I don't understand what you mean by that though. You mean
Whatever-
like whatever produces the outcome that is desired?
No, whatever is the case, like, is it the case that blah, 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 blah? Is it the case
But
that...
have you read Herodotus or whatever? Doesn't he do the histories? Is that, oh my God, do I have it right? I might have it wrong. Where they talk about, so we're all in the room and I pull out a gun and I shoot Ryan, but everybody's perception
Those are
on
perspectives.
perspective. So what is really the truth?
The truth is whatever it is that actually happened.
Yeah.
We may maybe no one in the
So
room
no
even
one
knows.
in the room can know what the
Possibly
truth might
not.
be.
Or I think the really important lesson is that we need each other in order to get a fuller picture of what actually
Of
happened.
what happened.
Yeah, the more stories you can put.
Yeah. The
Together.
more angles
Yes.
you have on it, the more like.
Exactly. It's like a pen can drop on the floor, but everyone can remember the sequent events just a little differently. But all of a sudden, there's
the compilation of everyone's telling of the story, no matter how marginal the difference is, somehow lends itself to be more aware of the truth.
and the more details
Whatever
given, the
is
more
the case.
Why this?
Huh?
The truth.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
No, but I mean,
it's
but
my,
important
it's
to-
my, well, because I'm,
but
it's just
part
from
of-
integral. Sorry, we just always
What-
to like go like what you.
Whatever is the case. Is that what you said? Whatever is the case. So then the truth is the degree to which those people in the room share the truth. So
no, the truth is what happened.
The truth has got to
But
be reality.
as far as the people in the room can
Yeah, it's
tell,
reality.
is only after they're talking to each other what happened. Then they can have an idea of what that might look like, what the reality actually was.
So the
So-
question
so
is,
then-
can we as a people even grasp the
Yes.
reality that is
With
the truth?
enough precision and detail.
Mhm.
Because what happens when you get more precision and detail, then you can start using process of elimination. The cap can't be off of it if the cap's still at the table at the end of the night. There's different little details that really matter.
you confuse me.
So, as we share details about our story, there are certain things that evolve where certain events are. If the majority says this happened first before this or whatever, you can use process of elimination to fill in the rest of the details. So to
to
speak.
discern what's
Yeah.
true
Yes.
in terms of what
Okay,
reality
so there is
really
no
was.
little t truth, and there's just truth and perspective.
So there's what
There's
happened.
there's truth. There's only truth. Truth is truth. There's truth. There's truth. There's truth.
I
And there's
don't-
nothing but truth.
But,
Which
okay,
is
so,
reality.
but
It's
then
just
you,
reality.
but then,
Whatever is.
what if those people in that room turn around and never talk to each other?
Or
walk
what if one of
away?
them lies?
Or what if one of them lies?
Okay, but if
Yes.
there's a lie, then there's truth.
What do you
The,
mean?
the reality
Yeah.
still happened.
No,
I
if-
agree. Truth is right there, but you're making a distinction between what is the actual truth and what is
My opinion about the truth is a different
your
thing.
your opinion about the truth. Yeah,
But it's not my truth and
Right.
your truth. It's my opinion about your truth. So
right. So okay, so you're saying that there is no little t truth. There is only capital T truth
No,
and the
there's-
opinion of the
it
truth.
doesn't matter whether you capitalize it or not.
Okay,
The word can
so
only
there's
mean
no-
one thing.
So there's only truth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Because I'm still making a distinction by capitalizing
Right.
it.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't mean to do that, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
So then it's a matter of precision in one's speech, in terms of you would say, "This is my opinion of the truth."
Or this is my
Yeah.
perspective. Or this is what I remember happened.
So
or
then,
this
but
is
then
what I think
nobody
happened.
could ever say that this is the truth, because you
Yeah,
can
it seems
only
like they
you
would-
can only ever say this
Well,
is my opinion of the truth.
This is my.
Well, I guess you could say it internally to yourself.
Well, and there's this context though. It's like this is the truth as I see it, but you leave off I see it because it's just expedient.
You don't
Yeah.
have- you don't have to keep repeating
everyone.
that.
but that's
Yeah,
not,
exactly.
But you
Oh, I
ought
think you
to.
do. I
You
think
ought
you
to,
ought to,
yeah.
and I think
More
you do
often.
You
because
have to.
I don't think that's how society works. I mean, I think
Right,
that's
right.
why there's a
Well,
war.
Yeah.
It's-
That's
Yeah,
why there's
exactly.
a politically correct
We're
war.
cutting corners. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, if we stop cutting corners, then hopefully
Yeah.
things get better.
Because if you leave it off in that paradigm of,
Then
the,
you
of
have-
only there's only truth paradigm,
Mhm.
then you're starting with a lie. If
Right.
you don't say that,
And
and
it's
it
a-
can't be. Then it can't
And then
be.
it can't be.
A good
Well, no,
message.
it's not a lie. You can say the truth is blah blah blah, and then someone else can say, "Well, I disagree." Then the conversation should be able to continue from there and say, "Well, the reason why I don't think that's true
Mhm.
is because, and the reason you think it's true is because."
But I
that's all.
actually
Yeah,
think
it's
that's
implied.
kind of.
You're right.
But
You're right.
I don't know that I agree that it's so implied. I think that it's very important that you're saying that you're very precise with the language and that you're saying from my perspective, or however you want to do it, because that does encourage other
Yeah,
people
yeah.
to say theirs. Whereas if you say, well, this is how it is, then that tends to scare people, or people that maybe would have come and given you a gift of their
Yeah.
perspective to make it something,
Yeah.
put the red and the yellow together to make the orange, and then
But
it was orange.
That's your prerogative, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Well,
don't
your
want
attitude,
somebody's
how
opinion.
your attitude, how you frame it too, because you start taking the reality and spinning it to a status thing, like where I'm challenging your authority, so to speak, and putting my opinion on a shelter. I mean, just the way you talk about it can change the whole thing. But if someone's seeking the truth, they're not going to care about status. They just really want to know how you experience.
But let me give you an example of why I'm saying it. It's better not to insist too much that it matter that we say I think, or it's my perspective. So what often happens is people will say something and then someone will say, well, that's just your opinion. Okay? What they really mean is they disagree. Because no one ever says that's just your opinion if they also agree. They would say, yeah. They wouldn't say that's just your opinion. So, but we should it's always our opinion about what the truth is. So
Right.
instead of just saying that's just your opinion, you should give the reasons why you think it's not true. You say, for example, well, I think that's not true because.
Or what you
Keep
should
it
say
in
is,
the
I
truth.
think your opinion of the truth is flawed,
Yeah, but no,
perhaps
no.
because you haven't considered.
I think that's not true because. I think it's true because. That's completely 100%
Right.
whole and legit, and nothing else needs to
Oh, yeah,
be
yeah,
said.
no, yeah, you're right. I'm just thinking that's the
That's the-
subtext. That's what you're really saying, which makes sense because I think in any conversation between two enlightened people, it's gonna come up. At some point you'll be like, well, I don't know, and the person's gonna, if the person's
Yeah.
equally enlightened, they're gonna say, I don't know either. I'm just
Right,
trying to make heads or tails of this crazy
Right.
universe.
Cool.
But yeah, and it's also a way of.
But the curious thing is, like, why are we even drawn to do that? Why are we drawn to make heads or tails? The
Security.
various
Power.
Yeah, there's definitely political forces exerting their will.
I meant like personal power, like
Oh.
security. Yeah, but yeah, that too.
Oh yeah, and there's insecure. If you're talking about a personal level,
Yeah.
it's like insecurities, fears, things we're not ready to face yet. There's reasons we have blind spots, and we'll always have blind spots.
And pride,
Mm-hmm.
the number one sin, right? Pride. That's why we do it. We don't like to be wrong.
Well, you want to be that cool guy. It's always it's worth respecting, right? Or
And
it's
also,
also
I mean,
respect, but
To give us a break as human beings, I mean, we live in a very uncertain world that kills us.
In the end, we all
So
die.
it's understandable we want to be right?
and we don't know who the hell we are. We have a bunch of voices in our heads. We're trying to negotiate between.
Right.
So how am I supposed to say who I am to you? I mean, you just
Right.
got to see through time and action.
Yeah, hence the importance of the
love that.
negative capability. That's the thing to aim for, I think, negative capability. For me, it's another word for consciousness. It's like that. It's just consciousness as opposed to the contents of thought.
It's kind of
The
like
contents of thoughts are going to keep shifting,
Mhm.
but consciousness itself does not.
so like
What does that?
Consciousness itself does not.
Do you think that's true, really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Then maybe
So you're as
do
conscious
we-
as you're ever going to be right now. You will not be more conscious. I mean, this has been, for me, it's been a very different thing.
I don't think I don't think we're meaning the same thing.
Oh, okay. What do you
I
mean?
just mean that there's consciousness and then there's the content of thought, right? So we are aware of our thoughts,
and then there are thoughts.
and then there are thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought and I is a thought. Personality as a thought. So these forms that go floating through our consciousness, but that being aware of the change, the
Oh,
awareness.
isn't that interesting? I had that reaction.
Hmm?
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, so- yeah,
no,
so-
like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what you mean, right? You
Right,
mean
right.
like, oh, like yeah.
Right,
So
right.
the more that, because that's how it's been for me. My experience has been the more that I try to wake up, become more conscious. Then I can even be delighted, surprised, appalled
Yeah, yeah.
at my own responses to things.
Right.
Because I'm like, oh, who knew I was gonna?
Yeah.
And the awareness of your
Yeah.
using awareness is kind of
Right.
conscious. Yeah, how conscious
Yeah.
you are, how aware you are.
How
And
aware
when-
I
and
am.
when
So
Peter-
my thing has been that I feel like I'm
Yeah.
constantly, hopefully,
Growing.
please Jesus,
Yeah.
opening, and hopefully with
Exactly.
His help.
Yeah.
For me, that's my
Yeah, yeah,
belief
yeah.
that's with the source.
Yeah.
You plug into the source, and
Mhm.
you have to like let go of your ego, let go of certain things, and then as you start dropping the bags, then you can become more and more open to even Look at that.
And I think that's one thing that Peterson is aiming for, because when he talks about how your world can crumble, right? You all of a sudden find that your partner has been unfaithful. And he gives this, he gives this list of devastating lists of all of a sudden, like your car breaks down.
Everything
all of a sudden,
changes.
Wow, you're in the middle of the country and like, man, the world is a different world now, right?
Right.
So that kind of inner stability
Mm-hmm.
is the goal, really, to
Mhm.
find that.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologist as a mechanic, right? Makes your car go, keeps you stable.
Makes your
That's
ego
what
go.
Peterson says.
Yeah. but you were saying I guess they helped me to understand what I was thinking it
Mhm.
is, and what you were saying consciousness is. I still am not sure I'm understanding that you're as conscious as you're going to be.
No, I never said you're as conscious as you're going to be. You said that.
That's what I heard. See.
No,
There
I just
you
said
go.
that consciousness is unchanging.
Uh-huh.
The contents of consciousness are constantly changing, including our very sense of self and personality. That's all changing, shifting.
Huh.
So, like people with Alzheimer's, I think they're conscious. They
Uh-huh.
haven't lost their consciousness; they've lost their self and other things.
Mm.
So, but there's still that basic consciousness is there.
Hmm.
Even a coma patient probably has some very, very low level of consciousness.
My dad came out from a coma and was yelling at people because my brother was trying to pull the plug and do something, and they wanted to stop stuff, and he was
He
aware
knew.
the
His
whole time.
subconscious.
He woke up and he made me executor or whatever. He changed all the paperwork. He was like so pissed. So he was aware,
Wow.
even though they said his brain waves were such, and so the doctors had said he was like brain dead. But when he woke up, he knew everything. Conversations had been held in the room in his
Well,
presence.
that's the
and
big
everything.
question. That is the question.
See, so I actually
Is there a soul
believe
or
that
not?
people have that
Yeah,
ability. It's not necessarily we rely too much on intellectual stimulation or your hearing, but I think that there's other senses that we'll find out about later.
Well, I think it's
Because I love Star Trek.
I think we have poor language to define the whole idea. There's only 5 senses. I think it's just it's
Right,
a
I think there's
cultural thing
many,
that's
many
self-defined.
more.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just don't. We're just not plugged into them. Just because we
Well-
don't name them and we don't identify them doesn't mean they aren't.
And ignorance is bliss. Like the
Right.
more awareness you're plugged into, the more overwhelming consciousness can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of defense you got to keep, right? You only
Mhm.
can handle as much unknown as you're prepared to.
Mhm.
Right.
That's just the more chaos in it, you can lose the whole plot if you introduce too
Mhm.
much.
Yeah. Well, that's why people did hallucinogenics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is to kind of
To zone
expand-
out?
to
Oh.
expand their consciousness.
Oh, really?
Their awareness, yeah. Because one of the things it does is it transposes the senses. So all of a sudden, touch turns into sound. So you'll start
Mm-hmm.
touching things, and you'll get visual hallucinations. So it starts flipping so it completely
Synesthesia.
changes
Yeah.
all your sensory input. So it changes your consciousness,
Mhm.
and their brain, pretty much takes the patterns and the knowledge it has and applies it to this new consciousness, and it's just they
It's
make
not
all sorts
new.
of they get to
It's confusing.
they get to experience the world in a different way, and
Mhm.
hopefully it makes new connections they would never made if they were confined to their current consciousness.
I think that's really what you're saying is exactly true, and I believe that. But I think that people that think that way are just like very, it's not wise.
I agree with you. I would
Because
personally do
if that is a thing that's happening, if that's what's happening and that's what they're going after, the thing is like it's already within them. There's nothing. It's not new. It's just taking what they have and using it in a new way. And I would be skeptical of using a drug to do that,
Mhm.
as far as being able to cultivate my ability to do it myself later.
Amen.
Mhm. Yeah, they get
So-
the bad trip, right? You introduce too much unknown, too much chaos, and
Mhm.
just completely lose it.
Well, also,
Well,
I guess
don't
I have
know
my.
about that. It just
I have
makes
my-
you
Well, then
stupid.
people on bad have
Well,
have bad
yeah,
trips,
but I'm saying that even the good trips are bad ones, because you're it's like using steroids to get used to weightlifting.
Mhm.
It's not a sustainable
It's not saying
methodology.
I think there are people who use it wisely though, and use it differently.
Steroids or
No.
oh,
Probably.
hallucinogenics.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
far
I
as
mean,
I can
I don't know that much about it, but
Yeah.
philosophically speaking, I don't think it would be. It doesn't jive philosophically.
Yeah, really doesn't. Like to me, I would be, and maybe this is my Judeo-Christian thing. Like how do I know that I'm not just being deceived by that drug? That it's not
Yeah.
like, because you're saying something that I'm not sure is true.
And yeah, everyone's brain's different, so everyone's gonna get the same thing. It
Mhm.
just seems to be
Hmm.
what I've understood happens.
Mm-hmm.
The
That's
general
the
case.
story.
That's the story.
That's the story,
That's-
yeah.
That's the skinny.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I don't know why I said that. I just,
No,
I'm always so. I guess maybe it's because I have a young one now, and so I'm like really. All of a
Yeah,
sudden,
don't
I'm
be
like,
deceived.
legalize weed, legalize hallucinogenics.
Wow,
10
yeah.
years ago, I'm all about it. Now, guys, maybe we should look at some more studies.
we gotta take care of
and,
people here.
You-
I'm getting up
you'd
there.
rather have them just try it and go to jail, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, let's
As
look at
opposed
the
to try it
jails, too.
illegal.
These jails seem to be eating up a lot of tax dollars here. I don't know. Yeah,
Let's get rid of
definitely.
mental institutions too. Those are costly. We'll
Yeah.
just put people
Oops.
on the streets.
Let's just do that, Reagan. Yeah.
Probably a good place to wrap it up.
Actually, it's a good point.
Okay.
Oh, anyways, no. Yeah, but
But we
the
got to
jails,
hear a good
because-
point.
Well, I'm thinking because there's been these guys out propositioning for some tax thing with marijuana at the grocery stores. Or at least they were out like 2 weeks ago. I'm sure you guys saw them because they were at like every grocery store. It seemed like.
I don't
But
know,
anyways, so those guys are out, and now you come walking through with your kids, and they're like, "Hey, we're using." I guess to boil it down real quick, the one thing I thought was, how they have wine auctions at
Oh
school.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Would you want a weed auction at a school?
Would you want a wine auction?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You should be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that at
I'm
school.
a non-drinker. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
do
wouldn't-
drink, and I have drink, and I have used marijuana.
Mhm.
I've smoked weed, but I don't, like
Remember,
Like-
this is
See,
not
like,
on
I remember at
when
Yeah.
you- so when you run for
Mary's-
president,
I've done
There it is.
heroin, ecstasy, methamphetamines, acid, shrooms. I'm just saying, I have some. I'm not a armchair
sit on a
philosopher.
square.
Yeah. No, but I
You're
mean,
really
I guess philosophically speaking, do we want to? I don't know what's the term for when you make something seem normal and cool.
Yes,
drinking
normalization,
alcohol, for
right.
example.
Or I like.
Do we want to make that normal and cool?
Or do we want to do gambling to support our schools? Like
Yeah,
the lotto, for
exactly.
example. It's the same type of things. Is Yeah.
Well,
My truth, if we were to have a battle about this and make it an issue, my truth would be that like if you get money from gambling and put it into schools, it can't do good.
It's not, yeah, I believe that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is like the Jordan Peterson thing, right? Because doesn't he say that that's why you have to every day try to be as truthful as possible? Because with every
Or
choice
stop
you
lying.
make, but with every choice you with every choice you make, you're bringing more of that into the whole world.
That's true.
So whatever you do, and that really resonates.
As soon as you
with
say
me.
yes, now we have casinos everywhere.
Mhm. And I remember
Slippery
we were at
slope.
St. Mary's College, and the Budweiser or somebody like that, I think it was Budweiser, was willing to invest in an incredible amount of money to do a whole gym and all this stuff and do an indoor swimming pool and all this,
Mhm.
but they wanted Budweiser logo on it. And
Yeah.
I remember, like, I actually picketed this, and I was just like getting people like, what does it say about our school that we would allow this? This is just totally wrong. And it was like a visceral thing for me. It was like when I first heard it, I don't even know if I could articulate the argument why I thought it was wrong. I just think that is just wrong. Because who are we then? What's our identity?
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
But
that's
it's like, so are we saying that we want to be enlightened people, or do we say we just want to go?
yeah. It's
But-
interesting because people miss the subtleties. Because I don't believe if there was
You're right.
Budweiser logos everywhere, that would make people drink more Budweiser. I don't believe it works that way. But there is some principle at work there, and that's the
Yeah, the principle was
Yeah,
like
exactly.
wrong, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
like
just
why
a-
I wouldn't want there to be. Like, I don't even think there should be wine auctions to support the school. We should look for things that's going to be more about. Actually, I think that's what the whole problem is. The society doesn't want to be woke, or
Well, so-
enlightened, or trying
well,
to.
we have different
Yeah.
values. There's
We got-
a
we
group of
gotta
people
go
that
out,
don't
woke
care, and there's a
everybody
group of people that care. It's just about resolving those differences in a productive way that doesn't go to arms.
Yeah.
All right, I think
Yeah,
it's a good place to
that's
stop
yeah.
it. All right, guys. We'll try to do another one of these sometime.
Yeah, sometime.
Thanks for joining us.
Outro music.